The year was 1944. It was the bone-chilling winter that history remembers as the Battle of the Bulge. The dense forests of Europe were blanketed in a sheet of white snow, but beneath that pristine whiteness lay the stench of blood and gunpowder. War is not fought by soldiers alone. At that very moment, deep within the cold, dark dungeons of Germany, something was unfolding that history books often leave in the shadows. This is the saga of a group of American nurses and women who found themselves trapped in the jaws of war, captured by the German army. Imagine the scene. An old, fetid room. Stone walls so freezing that a mere touch would numb your fingers. Outside, the terrifying barking of German shepherds and the ominous thud-thud-thud of heavy jackboots pacing the corridor. Inside, a group of American women stood huddled together, terrified, clinging to one another. They were not combat soldiers. They held no rifles. They possessed only one weapon that no enemy could confiscate: their dignity. They had been there for days. Hunger, thirst, and the biting cold had broken their bodies, but the true test was yet to come. Suddenly, the heavy iron doors swung open with a violent crash. German guards stormed into the room. Their eyes held that specific cruelty that had the entire world trembling in fear. Machine guns rested in their hands, and a single command was on their lips. One guard stepped forward and screamed in broken English, "Everyone in line! Showers! Take off your clothes! Now!" A silence fell over the room, a silence more terrifying than death itself. Showers? By that point in the war, the rumor had spread to every corner of the world that in Nazi camps, showers did not mean bathing. They meant death in gas chambers. And even if this wasn't death, a different, more personal terror gripped their hearts. Was this a setup for something far more hideous under the guise of hygiene? Were they about to be used as comfort girls? Fear choked them. Some of the younger women began to sob uncontrollably, while others clutched their coats tighter, as if those rags were the only shield left between them and the abyss. The guard screamed again, louder this time. "I said strip, or we will do it for you." In that moment, the tension in the room was so thick it could be cut with a knife. The guards leveled the barrels of their guns at these unarmed women. They were left with only two choices: strip away their honor or sacrifice their lives. But then, from the center of the trembling crowd, a voice emerged. It did not shake. It was solid as rock. No, it was the voice of the most senior nurse in the group. She stepped forward, her face pale, her lips cracked and dry, but her eyes burning with a fierce fire. She looked straight into the eyes of the German guard and declared, "We are American soldiers. We are prisoners of war. Under the Geneva Convention, we have rights. We will not take off our clothes in front of you." The guard was stunned. He was used to people obeying orders, not defying them. He raised the butt of his rifle, ready to strike. The other women began to scream, certain that bullets were about to fly, that blood was about to spill. The atmosphere reached a boiling point. The guards moved in to use force. The women clung to each other, forming a human wall, deciding in that split second that they would die before they let this happen. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed from the corridor. "Halt!" The sound of heavy boots approached. A German officer, bearing the insignia of high rank, strode into the room. It was the commandant. His eyes swept over the chaotic guards and then settled on the terrified but defiant women. The guard saluted nervously and stammered, "Sir, these prisoners are refusing orders." They refused to strip. The American women held their breath. They expected this high-ranking officer to give the direct order to fire. They had heard that Nazi officers had no hearts. The officer walked slowly toward them. His gaze locked onto the senior nurse who had led the refusal. She didn't blink. She simply stared back. For a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. The officer paused. He saw that these were no ordinary prisoners. They valued their honor more than their lives. And perhaps, amidst the filth and inhumanity of war, the soldier within that officer awoke, the soldier who understood discipline and respect, not the monster the world despised. He looked back at his guards and gave an order that shocked everyone. He barked in German, "Raus! Get out!" The guards looked confused. The officer snapped again. "Get the guards out. Close the doors. These are women. They will wash in private. No one enters." And then he looked at the women one last time, gave a barely perceptible nod, and turned to walk away. The shock that hit those American women was more powerful than any explosion. They had expected death, They had expected violation, but they never ever expected respect, certainly not from the enemy. The guard stomped out. The heavy door slammed shut. As soon as the latch clicked, the women who had stood like lionesses collapsed to the floor, weeping uncontrollably. They weren't crying from fear anymore. They were crying from the sheer relief of the burden that had just been lifted. They had won a battle without firing a single shot. That night, they bathed in freezing cold water, but the warmth that filled their souls was indescribable. They learned that sometimes when you stand firm on your principles, when you hold on to your dignity without fear, even the devil is forced to retreat. History may treat this as a minor incident, but for those women, it was the greatest victory of their lives. They proved they were not just prisoners or victims, they were warriors. And that shock that the enemy bowed down to their self-respect is a story the world must never forget.